Today I will be demonstrating how to make a holiday Yule log. So first you will want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius. Our next step will be to grease our 9x13 sheet pan. And then we will cover it with a fitted sheet of parchment paper. So I just used some Crisco, or you can use vegetable shortening to grease the bottom of the pan. Put a good nice layer down, and then you'll want to put down your fitted sheet of parchment paper. And it's okay if it goes up the sides a little bit, that is no problem. So we want to set that pan off to the side. And next we're going to start with our ingredients for our sponge. So we have sugar, flour, we have our milk, some powdered sugar that we'll use later, melted butter, and salt. And I realize I didn't point to the rest of the ingredients, so I apologize for that. So now we'll start by making our egg mixture. So we will put 4 eggs into the mixing bowl, along with 3/4 cup of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And we'll want to whip this on high speed for about maybe 5-10 minutes possibly. What we want to achieve here is a mixture that is pale and fluffy and triples in volume. So you'll see here that it starts to go from yellow to a very pale yellow, and that's what we want to achieve. So keep whipping that until it achieves this consistency. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to want to add a half a cup of cocoa powder to the mixing bowl, along with 2/3 a cup of flour and 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And what we're going to want to do is fold this gently into the egg mixture, making sure to really get down and scrape the sides and the bottom of the bowl to fully incorporate these dry ingredients. So next, once the dry ingredients have been added and combined, we're going to whisk together in a separate bowl 1/3 cup of sour cream, 1/4 cup of melted butter, and 2 tablespoons of milk. And we're just going to get that nice and smooth and whisk that by hand. Once we've mixed those things together, we're going to gently add them to our batter in our mixing bowl. So we want to be careful not to plop the ingredients into the mixing bowl. We just want to gently put them into the bowl and then stir to make sure that everything is smooth and well combined. Might take about 5 or so minutes to really just make sure everything is combined. So next we want to transfer our batter to our prepared pan, and we want to make sure we have an even layer. You want to get every ounce and nook and cranny of that batter into the pan and make sure to smooth it out so it is even and it gets into the corners of the pan. And if you see that sometimes maybe a little bit of the batter isn't fully mixed in, you can just use the spatula to mix it in as well with no problem. Okay, so we want to bake our sponge for about 20 to 22 minutes until it is nice and until the cake is fully set and springs back when touched. While the cake is baking, we are going to make our chocolate whip filling. We have a half a cup of powdered sugar, 4 ounces of cream cheese, 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So we're going to whisk this together until nice and smooth. It might take a little bit to get there. You're also going to want to scrape down the sides of the bowl periodically just to make sure there are no chunks that are left in the bowl. A nice and smooth consistency is what we want to achieve. Once we have that smooth consistency, we're going to want to slowly add in the heavy cream and continue to whisk it on medium to high speed. And what we want to achieve are stiff peaks from the whipped frosting. So once we've completed our filling, we are going to look to prepare the towel that we'll be using to roll the cake. Heavily dust the top of the towel or the parchment paper, and you want to make sure whatever you use is a size that is larger than the size of your 9 by 13 pan. So you're going to take your baked cake and we're going to swiftly turn it upside down onto the dusted towel. And you want to still do this when the cake is hot because it's still at its most flexible state. Right after, we are going to take off the piece of parchment paper and we are going to start rolling the cake within the towel until we get to the end. So you're going to start at the shorter end of the cake and carefully roll it into a tight log, incorporating that towel into the roll. And you want to try to move as swiftly as possible because you don't want the cake to completely cool, otherwise it will end up cracking on you. So after we have rolled it, we're going to let the cake cool for about 10-15 minutes, seam side down. And then once it has cooled, we're going to start slowly unrolling it. And we want to make sure we don't go too quickly, otherwise we also may crack pieces of the cake. So slowly unroll it, and then we're going to start adding our filling on top of our cake. So the cake is still a bit warm, and that's okay. As long as you move quickly, the frosting, or in this case, the whipped filling, shouldn't melt too much. So we'll be sure to add our filling evenly on top of the cake. I used a small angled spatula to spread it around, and you want to spread it to every inch of that cake and to make sure it is nice and even. So now the moment of truth. We're going to start and we're going to roll that cake up. And then as you can see, if you have extra filling at the end, it's no problem. You can just take a spatula or a knife and remove that. So then we're going to want to take the cake and we're going to want to roll it up into some cling film or saran wrap and make sure it's fully covered by the saran wrap. And we're going to refrigerate it for 2 hours or overnight. Okay, one of our last steps now is to make the whipped chocolate ganache frosting. To start, we are going to take a half a cup of heavy cream and put it on a saucepan over the stove till it gets to just before it simmers. And while it's doing that, we're going to chop up 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. It doesn't have to be very fine. There could be a couple larger chunks in there. That's no problem. So we're going to put that in a bowl. And then once the heavy cream is at the correct temperature, which is right before it starts to simmer, we're going to pour it on top of our chocolate and we're going to let it sit there for 5 minutes. And what this is doing is this is helping the chocolate to slowly start to melt just from the heat of the cream. So once the 5 minutes has passed, we are going to take a whisk and we are going to whisk the chocolate and the green cream together until it is very smooth. And you'll see you'll get a really nice dark chocolate ganache there. So then we're going to take that and we're going to put it in our mixing bowl, and we're going to mix it in our, we're going to whip it in our mixer on high speed until it is nice and fluffy. We want to make sure that frosting looks nice and fluffy. It'll also be smooth and very thick. You probably want to maybe whisk it for a good 5 minutes just to get that achievable consistency that we need. So now it'll be time to frost the log. So we'll take off the saran wrap or the cling wrap off of our Yule log. You can find a nice platter if you'd like to, and that's where you can put your Yule log on and start to frost it. And what we'll do here is we'll take a serrated knife and we will just cut off a small slice from each end of the Yule log, and that's just to achieve a nice clean cut and to showcase that beautiful swirl that we accomplished. This way, it'll help with just making just a nice easy cut when you do cut into the cake at the very end when we're ready to eat it. So now that we've cut off a small part of both ends, we're also going to look to cut off a diagonal piece from either end of the log. And it should only be maybe an inch or two in length. It doesn't have to be very big. And what this is going to be is this is going to be the branch to our log. And we're going to press that right up against the log so that it looks like it's a branch offshooting. So we just want to press it up to the cake at this point, and then our frosting will help kind of seal it together. So next we'll take our ganache frosting, and I just used a small spatula to put it on top of the log itself. And then I use my small angled spatula again to start spreading the frosting around and covering the Yule log in its entirety. And it doesn't have to be very neat. As you can see, I'm kind of leaving it a little rough because it should resemble what a log would look like. You know, the structure and the ridges and lines of what bark looks like. So it doesn't have to be very smooth like you would normally do when you frost a cake. It can definitely be a little messy, and it'll look exactly as it should. We'll also decorate the top of it as well. So what you can also do to achieve that kind of look of bark, you can take a fork and you kind of run your fork along the top of it, or even on the end of the Yule log, to get some of those maybe rings that you would see on a tree. And that kind of also helps it maybe look like a log. The ganache does harden quickly, so if you do want to use the fork method, I would suggest as soon as you frost it, very quickly get the fork out and start putting those lines as you would like on there. So the last thing is just be decorating the log. So what I had done is I had sugared some cranberries and some rosemary sprigs, and I made some meringue mushrooms as well. And you'll just want to decorate it as you see fit. You can put as many decorations on there or as little, however you would like. So I just put a little bit of rosemary sprig on there, some sugared cranberries to kind of represent holly, and then I just put only a few of my marshmallow meringue mushrooms on there as well. And then the final part to kind of give it that Christmas feel or holiday feel is I'm going to take some powdered sugar and a little bit of cocoa powder, and I'm going to sift it right over the log, and it's just going to look just very picturesque, give you a dusting of snow is what it's supposed to resemble. So just some simple decorations that you can do at the end. So I just wanted to thank you very much for attending today's baking demonstration, and I hope that you all have a happy holiday. Bye.